office of President of the United States.
For democracy belongs to us all.
A government for our tomorrows.
I, George Walker Bush, do solemnly swear.
We gather because we have chosen hope over fear.
Because this moment is your moment. It belongs to you.
Meet this moment as the United States of America.
Hello, and welcome to Washington Post Live. I'm Ramesh Ponnuru, a contributing columnist at the Post. My guests today are Nebraska Republican Congressman Don Bacon and New Jersey Democratic Congressman Josh Gottheimer. Gentlemen, welcome to Washington Post Live.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Congressman, the election is now 5 days away. Both of you have unified to sign a bipartisan pledge to respect the election results. Congressman Bacon, what do you hope to accomplish with this pledge?
We just want to take the moral high ground and say that we respect our elections. We've been doing this since 1789. And you see a lot of, undercurrent on both parties. Obviously, you've seen it with our party in 2020, but we've had similar dysfunction on the Democrat side in 2016, and you hear some folks right now saying President Trump wins, they're not going to vote to certify. So I just think it's important for good Democrats and good Republicans to come on board to say, we have an election process, we got to respect it, and we got to protect our democracy.
Congressman Gottheimer, correct me if you have updated numbers, but the latest I have seen is that there are 28 Democrats and only 6 Republicans who have signed this pledge. Why do you think there has been so much reluctance, really on both sides of the aisle, but more on the Republican side?
Well, I'll leave that to Don to address the Republican side, but I just want to, first of all, thank Don for his leadership on this and so many other efforts. But secondly, say that, what we've asked other members to agree to, I think is something that's that seems pretty basic, but unfortunately these days, as you know, is difficult. To say one, that we're going to respect the outcome of the election and certify the electors after the courts. We have lots of local courts look at issues, but we're going to respect the outcome of the election. Secondly, that we're going to do everything we can, Don and I and others, to ensure civility and peace and calm, which I think is essential here in the greatest country in the world, and to ensure our democracy is sound. And third, that we're going to attend the inauguration of the president, whoever wins. And I think these are basic things in a peaceful transition of power. That we should all agree to. These shouldn't be difficult things. We can disagree on policy, as you know, all day long, as we're doing right now, as you see every day on TV and in debates. But at the end of the day, we put the country first. We respect the outcome of elections, and the vote itself is not a partisan thing. The vote, and we respect the outcome, and that's what we should do as a country and come together.
Thank you. Congressman Gottheimer, another question for you.
Sure.
Former President Donald Trump has repeatedly, although less frequently of recent months, voiced skepticism and criticism of the use of mail-in ballots in election, saying that they are insecure. Have you seen any evidence that that's true?
No, not at all. I mean, not here in northern New Jersey. And listen, I think our election officers do a phenomenal job. Our poll workers do a phenomenal job. I mean, listen, what worries me now, and I've talked to a lot of our poll workers, is they're getting increasingly harassed and intimidated. And we're having a harder time every year finding poll workers who are willing to oversee the vote itself. But I've not seen any evidence of that. And and listen, we've got to do everything we can, I believe, to protect the polls and the sanctity of the vote. But right now you have we've got early vote going on here in northern New Jersey. We've got vote by mail. And in all these cases with early vote and vote by mail, you're having huge numbers of people, by the way, Democrats and Republicans, coming out to vote.
The Washington Post reported yesterday in a poll of 6 swing states, a majority of voters fear violence if Trump loses. 2/3 believe that the former president won't accept the results if he's defeated. Congressman Bacon, are these fears well grounded?
But we saw violence in 2016 on the day of the inauguration. I saw a car burning. Obviously, we saw violence on January 6th of 2020. And I just think what Josh and I, by the way, I really appreciate Josh too. I mean, Josh and I work together on so many different issues, a lot of foreign policy and fighting anti-Semitism and things like this. He's been a great friend and a great partner in Congress. That's the reason we're doing this. We want to make clear that we're going to stand for what's right. And I can't control necessarily some of the statements that the president's made in the past. But we got to make clear that where we're going to be at. We're going to support the winner after all the courts can adjudicate whatever cases are brought forward. And we should be a healing voice within the House, and we should attend the inauguration regardless who wins. To answer your earlier question to Josh Ramesh, was there should be more Republicans signing on there, but they thought initially that the primary focus was on January 6, 2020, and they didn't want to, they were fearful it was a one-sided letter. But I tried to assure them it's not, because we're hearing both sides talk this way about not respecting the results if the other guy wins. And when it comes to violence, we're seeing evidence on both sides that this can happen. And so we got to be Americans first before Republicans and Democrats, and make our case strong, but then we respect the winner. We shake hands after the election.
Speaking of violence, Congressman.
Sorry.
Sure, please. Well, I was going to ask.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Add what you want to add.
Sorry if there's a delay, so I apologize. No, I'm just going to say to Don's point, the sanctity of our elections is critical, and there's nobody who wants to see us fail in the endeavor of an election than our enemies, right? Than Iran, Russia, China, North Korea, who are doing everything, as the Director of National Intelligence reported, I think last week, and I'm on the Intelligence Committee, but this was public, that our enemies do everything they can to undermine our elections, to spew anti-American rhetoric and online, and to get us to battle each other and question the outcome of an election. And what that does is when they seed these questions for people, right? It leads to, I know someone in New Jersey, a woman was physically and verbally assaulted. A poll worker was. A Texas man punched a poll worker, and an elderly poll worker. This is the kind of things that happen when our enemies get their way and try to sow discontent and questions. And we need to do to make sure, because they want our democracy to fail. They want freedom to fail. Our job is to stand strong. That's why Don and I are doing this, and so many others, to protect the whole process. And Susan Collins and I led the Electoral Reform Act, and to make sure last Congress to ensure that January 6th doesn't happen again, right? So all these things need to happen to protect our democracy.
Thank you. Some important points there. And Congressman Bacon, I want to follow up on that. How worried are you about threats to election workers, and how much of the problem has been solved by the Electoral Reform Act of 2022?
Well, I supported the Electoral Reform Act. I appreciate Josh and the senators' leadership on this. I think it was needed. I studied the law of 1879 and how we got to the January 6th thing. I went to National War College, and that was my elective, and so I felt like as Republicans or Democrats that we had an obligation to certify, because the law of 1879 talked about if there's two slates coming from a single state, then the House has to determine which slate's the real slate. But what we had in 2020 was each state just did one slate, and the governor signed off on it. And I think that made the Constitution made it clear what our obligation was. But I think the Electoral College Act, the reform here, further clarifies our duties on that. And I've co-sponsored legislation protecting poll workers. I mean, I don't care if you're a Republican poll worker or a Democrat poll worker. There's no reason for violence, and they're doing a function that's needed, and we should defend them. So there should be higher penalties if someone threatens or assaults a poll worker, and that's absolutely wrong.
Thank you. The tone of this election. As you know, we have spent the last few days debating garbage, both the literal kind and the word. The tone of the election has been pretty consistently toxic in the view of many people. Congressman Gottheimer, do you think that cynicism about politics and about election results is increasing as a result of that?
Listen, I think all this rhetoric, nastiness, and and obviously the TV ads and everything else at this moment, of course, increases people's skepticism, and it stokes their anger, right? And this has been happening in the country for years, both on cable news and online. Don and I, as people very involved in as leaders of the Bipartisan Problem Solvers Caucus, of which we both are, I think believe every single day that we've got to show the country that we can put the country first, and we must put the country first, and that we can work together and get things done for them. That there's people that most members of Congress show up in Washington focused on how to get things done, not on how to scream and yell and tweet nasty things. Now, listen, election season is always tough. And by the way, that goes back to the beginning of our country, right? This is not a new thing. Mud has been slinging in this country around elections for generations, right? It was online. Before it was online, it was in newsprint, and whisper campaigns and rumors, right? So that's not a new phenomenon. The outlet is different. But what's really important is the country sees that we can come together and govern and get work done for them. And I think that's the most important thing. And Don and I have done that, whether you're talking about the Electoral Count Act, you were just talking, Don is a leading co-sponsor with me on the Poll Workers Act to protect our local poll workers, or the stuff we've gotten done together on the infrastructure bill, or the PACT Act for veterans, or the CHIPS bill, common sense gun safety legislation, all these things that we've been able to do together when you sit down and build relationships, build trust, and put the country first. And I just think people should know that, and I talk this every day, like, don't worry, there's people screaming and yelling, I get it, but there's a bunch of us who go to Washington when we're there and focus on where can we agree, and get things done.
I'm going to come back to the election, but since you raised this topic, we have a viewer question on how Congress works or doesn't work from Patrick Shea of Utah, who says, what needs to be done to make Congress functional again? Congressman Bacon, let's go to you first, and then Congressman Gottheimer.
Well, the voters need to demand more bipartisanship or more statesmanship from their representatives. I mean, it starts, who we elect. And we do have a group of folks in Congress that love the limelight. They love social media, and you get more clicks if you're more outrageous. But they're not the majority. But you hear them the most. In the end, even in this Congress, where we've passed what I would say less than the normal amounts of legislation, we've been able to get done what we have to get done. Whether it's FISA reform, FAA, the appropriations bills, and by and large, it's become the end vote have been bipartisan, because we have a slightly Democrat Senate and a slightly Republican House that neither side can really perform without these bills being largely in the middle of the debate. And so we've done our job this past year or last year and a half, and we've got the must-pass legislation done. But I would say there's things that we're not getting done, like border security and things like that do require a higher level of bipartisanship to get passed instead of the demagoguery. And to your earlier question, I do think the name calling, whether it's calling people garbage or human scum, and we got it both sides. What it does, whoever loses this race, a lot of those followers will be angry, and that's why I do think you're going to see, no matter who wins, some levels of violence. I hope it's not much. I hope it's small. I just think the demagoguery has gotten so high that it radicalizes a smaller group of individuals, and they won't take a loss they won't respect a loss, even if it's clear. So that's why we got to be careful about how we treat the other side. I want to remind people, President Putin, President Xi, the Khamenei, the Ayatollah Khamenei, they're the enemies. It's not Josh. It's not the Democrat that lives across the street. We're Americans, and we got to find solutions. We got to be able to find that consensus to do it.
Congressman
That's-
Gottheimer, any thoughts on how to make Congress more functional?
I couldn't agree more with Don on what he just said, which I think is really important, right? Your neighbors are not your enemy, right? Xi and the government of China and Iran, North Korea and Russia, that's the enemy. And we got to focus on that. And they're trying to undermine our democracy every day and our freedom. And Iran and all our proxies, all the terrorist proxies, right? They're focused, and they've been pretty clear about what they think about America, and are trying to do everything to undermine us. And so yes, I think Don's right that the rhetoric, of course, gets people to lose faith in government. It gets young people to lose faith in government, and it's critically important that we do everything we can to restore that. And it's why Don and I will do talks like this, because it's really important that people hear and have that what we need to do is come together and focus on what's best for the country, and we do it all the time. And people should know that we will go back after the election, regardless who wins, regardless of where the House is or the Senate is. We will go back to the table and sit together and figure out how we can govern and get the stuff done that we've got to get done, whether it's related to the budget, related to the tax legislation, whether it's related to flood legislation or the FAA or the FISA courts, whatever, the Farm Bill. Any of these things that have to get done, we're going to have to get done. And if you look at this last Congress, this past Congress, and all of the major legislation that's gotten done has been done with Democrats and Republicans working together. The Republicans couldn't do it without Democratic votes, and in the Senate, the Democrats have needed Republican votes. It's a narrowly divided government, and it likely will be again. And so the only way we're going to be able to actually legislate and govern is by working together and talking to one another. So I just want people to know that it happens. Have faith that it happens every week, and people like me and Don are focused on making sure we get stuff done for the country.
Congressman Gottheimer just alluded to the tightness of the election right now. Congressman Bacon, of course, you are from Nebraska, one of the two states in our country that allocates electoral votes by congressional district. A recent poll of your district has Kamala Harris, the vice president, up 12 points over former President Donald Trump. Do you think that she is going to get that electoral vote from your congressional district?
Well, the polling sure shows that she's likely to get the Electoral College vote here in District 2. I think those numbers are actually about 7 or 8. I mean, I got pretty good data on the ground here. I think the president's made up some ground, but 7 or 8 is a pretty big gap, and it creates a little bit of a heavy lift for down ballot Republicans. Let's be honest. I mean, I'm a candid person, and I think another thing that this separate electoral vote does, it brings in lots of outside money. And so Vice President Harris has spent $21 million in the Omaha TV market, and the former President Trump has spent less than $1 million. And so it does have a significant impact down ballot. But to answer your question,
including on your race.
Yes, it creates about a 10 or 20 mile an hour headwind for me, but also other down ballot Republicans in Omaha. But that's just a reality, and I can't change that. And my goal is to make the case for why I deserve re-election and what I've been able to do. But it has a negative impact when this is going on at the top of the ticket. But to answer your question directly, I think she's very highly favored to win, and I think she's up about 7 or 8 points right now.
What are you finding are the most important issues to voters in your race?
Well, there's a couple of different ways to look at it. If we look at national issues, the economy, I think, is by far not even close the number one issue, and it's the average person in America is 4% poorer today than they were 4 years ago because inflation outpaced wages. And even though inflation is down today, there's still that big hole that was dug for 3 years that people are still in. So it's harder to pay for groceries. It's harder to pay your utilities, and there's just less spending money to be had. And so and I know the president and the vice president will say, well, look at how good we have it now with unemployment, the stock market, and inflation is down now. But they're missing the fact that for 3 years, they did not keep up with inflation, and folks are really struggling out there financially. So that is the top issue, I think, by far in our district.
Congressman Gottheimer, there's been some back and forth about Speaker Johnson's recent suggestion that there need to be massive reforms to the Affordable Care Act in the next Congress. Do you agree with that? What's your level of interest in or concern about that idea?
I mean, I don't know the specifics of what he's mentioned, but I know that my constituents and the families I represent, are really big believers in the Affordable Care Act and use the Affordable Care Act to help them get health care. And I think overall, the most important thing is that we do everything we can to make health care more affordable for folks and out-of-pocket costs more affordable. It's why we worked so hard to cap out-of-pockets for seniors and cap out-of-pocket on price on insulin. And listen, I believe what we need to do overall, and Don was talking about the economy, is to just make sure, and what I talk to people about is to make life more affordable, whether you're talking about childcare costs or healthcare costs, or doing everything we can to lower taxes. And I'm going to be fighting hard to restore the state and local tax deduction this coming year and get people's taxes down, put more money in their pockets and help them, and get the price of groceries down and make life more affordable for them. And so I don't know what the speaker was talking about specifically on the Affordable Care Act, but I know that a lot of people here use it to have health care and to be able to afford their health care.
Congressman Bacon, does there need to be massive reform to the Affordable Care Act? And if so, what should it look like?
Well, I do think that we can make some improvements. We're not going to get rid of the Affordable Care Act in its entirety by no means. We just have to make modifications. Like people pre-existing conditions coverage, and which I've always voted for because I got fact checked on this in a local TV station and they verified that. Also, we want our children up until 26 to be on their parents' coverage. I think that's smart policy. Two things can be true though. Some people have benefited from ACA, like I would say poor income families, because they're getting subsidies, and that has made health insurance more affordable. However, if you're in that $90,000 area in income with your husband or you're as a couple or individually, you're not getting these subsidies, and your health insurance doubled or tripled, with ACA. And so what I have found, if you're a poor income, you like ACA, but if you're in that $90,000 to $100,000 range, you don't, because it's become very unaffordable with very high deductibles. And so I think what we need to do is see how we can make life better in the health insurance industry for folks who aren't getting those subsidies, figure out how we can make it more affordable. And there are some options out there. I'll give you an example. There's a company here in Omaha. They had a few that when you walk out of the hospital, they will pay in cash the day you leave the hospital. And because of that, the hospitals will lower the bill by half. And that allows this insurance company to charge about half in premium. So there are some models out there that we can look at and try to find ways to cut costs for people.
You've both talked quite a bit about bipartisanship and its necessity on many issues. What do you see as areas that are particularly ripe for bipartisan action in the next Congress, assuming, as you've both suggested, that we will have a closely divided Congress? Congressman Bacon, why don't you start?
Okay.
Yeah.
I see two areas of big need, and I think Josh and I are fairly closely aligned on these things. What worries me right now is $35 trillion in debt, $2.1 trillion deficit this last year. I support a debt commission that's half Republican, half Democrat, put experts in there and put a plan out how we're going to save Social Security and Medicare, how we're going to balance the budget. And in this legislation, you got to be able to say, whatever they come up with, we're going to put on the floor for a vote, up or down vote with no amendments. We're getting to the point of no return in our fiscal house, and we're got to come up with some hard answers. And this can't be a Republican or solely a Democrat plan, because the others will just beat each other up. It's got to be a partnership to get this done. But our kids and grandkids need us to come with some hard answers here and how we're going to get our fiscal house back in order. Secondly, I do believe bipartisanship is the answer for the border. And I'm working with 3 Democrats and 2 other Republicans right now on taking what the Senate was working on, this past year, but also some other things like legal immigration issues. What are we going to do with the 30 million people who are here illegally right now? I think what the previous work got us about 70 or 80% there. Let's not give up. Let's keep tweaking this till we can get these votes done, because America needs us to solve what's going on at the border. 10 million people come here illegally over the last 4 years is unsustainable, and it's led to higher crime and fentanyl deaths. We got to do this. I think we were close. We can't give up. We got to keep working this Republicans, Democrats, and get some solutions.
Congressman Gottheimer, any possible areas of cooperation?
I think a bunch, honestly, and listen, there's going to be, given how narrowly divided I believe it will be, on the big stuff, of course, like our annual appropriations and our budget work, we're going to have to do that together. If there are any debt ceiling issues, we're going to have to do that together. But Don is right on, listen, I think we've been working in a bipartisan way in the Problem Solvers Caucus and others on immigration reform for years. Don and I came to Congress together. I think, Don, we first started working on this in 2017. And it's been incredibly frustrating because we've had a lot of good solutions that are bipartisan that protect, and keep our borders secure, but also live up to our values and protect our dreamers and have a pathway to citizenship for folks, and to help grow our economy. And so it's very frustrating that this bipartisan deal that came together didn't get done this past year. I think we should go right back to work on it. I think there'll be foreign policy issues like supporting Ukraine and the U.S.-Israel relationship and other key areas that I believe will find good bipartisan common ground. The tax bill will ultimately have to come together in a bipartisan way, the tax legislation. That's going to be the Super Bowl issue of the next year in 2025. And again, I want to get SALT back and lower taxes for my families and expand the child tax credit to help pay for things like childcare and food for our kids in school. And I also think crypto and AI legislation will be front and center. And we're very close to having something done on the cryptocurrency space where we've got to come up with guardrails and ensure that we have economic opportunity here, but also protect our consumers. AI is going to be a huge national security. It continues to be a huge national security issue, not just an economic issue or a healthcare issue where there's a lot of upside, but also we've got to address a lot of issues. So that is moving fast, and I think something that will be front and center in this year.
Thank you, Congressman. Unfortunately, we are out of time. Thank you for joining us during this busy election season.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. Don, great.
And thanks to all of you for watching. For more of these important conversations, sign up for a Washington Post subscription. You can get a free trial by visiting WashingtonPost.com/live. That's WashingtonPost.com/live. I'm Ramesh Ponnuru, a contributing columnist for the Washington Post. Thanks again for joining us today.